Hey everyone, what's up? My name's Ronder, and I'm here to bring you the LSBA Season 3 Week 3 matchup between the Seattle Staraptors and the Everett Tropius. So this is the match that I've been alluding to in my past couple videos that we unfortunately had a disconnect 20 turns into the battle. So how we chose to resolve that was to simply recreate the teams that we had left at the point that we disconnected on Pokemon Showdown, and we finished the match that way. So we were able to resolve it, and we rewound a few turns to get it to line up properly and set hazards back up, and we rigged it so that our Pokemon were approximately at the same amount of HP that they were in the actual match. But before that, I have the 20 prior turns to the DC written up on screen, at 5 at a time, and I'll just quickly walk through them first so that you guys get a full sense of the battle from start to finish. So this is our first in-division match, and so after having lost the first 2 weeks, I really wanted to come out of this week with a win. So going into my team, I set up Uxie, so that's the fresh trade that I just made from Kingdra. Its job here is to set up rocks. I gave it just Reflect and not Light Screen this week because just looking over Matt's roster overall, he does have some special Pokemon, but most of the things that I was worried about were physical attackers. It has Thunder Wave to potentially slow some things down, and U-Turn. The speed control is a big issue this match. Going into my team preparation, I know from just past battling and watching Matt that he likes to run a lot of Choice Scarf Pokemon. Typically last year he ran no less than 2 Choice Scarfers in most of his LSBA matches, and so I went into this match expecting a lot of his things to either potentially be Choice Scarfed or just fast in general, so having things like T-Wave helps me with some speed control. This week I brought a substitute setup Vivian, so it's not running Tailwind, but its job is to simply put things to sleep, throw up a sub, Quiver Dance a few times, and Hurricane essentially. Mega Charizard X makes a return this week. I just saw that he has some things on his team like Fortress, which is his primary hazard removal, that not a lot on my team can OHKO except for Charizard. Pretty standard, just Dragon Dancing set there. My Breloom this week is, again, just the standard Technician Life Orb set. Making its return is Rapid Spin on Excadrill instead of Brick Break like last week. I knew that he might have the Fortress, and I knew that I would want to remove the rocks or spikes if he threw them up. And then, kind of an odd choice, but this week I chose to bring Choice Scarf Aerodactyl because I was looking at the speed tier that Choice Scarf Aerodactyl hits, and it turns out that even running Adamant on Aerodactyl, it outspeeds all of his potential Choice Scarfers, even if they're Jolly max speed and with a Scarf, just because Aerodactyl itself is so fast. That said, the 3 potential Choice Scarfers that I was looking at were Darmanitan, Heracross, and Nidoking, all of which showed up this week. And so there's one other possibility that I thought it would be hilarious if he brought Choice Scarf Jolteon this week, just because, I'm sitting here thinking, well, this guy loves to use Choice Scarfs, and nothing's faster than Choice Scarf Jolteon. But I didn't really entertain that idea as a serious possibility, but more so just joked around with it. But I did think that it was something that could happen, and when I saw Jolteon at Team Preview, I was like, I wonder. But we'll find out more about that later on. Looking at his team, it looks pretty much exactly what I expected it to look like, however a little less bulky than I was expecting. I'm really surprised that the Conkeldurr, the Goodra, and the Florges, none of them showed up. His team's really offensive this week. He has Jolteon, and then, as mentioned, Darmanitan, Heracross, and Nidoking, all 3 of which I considered could be Choice Scarfed, at least 2 out of 3 of them probably. He has his Fortress for hazard setting and also hazard removal, and then Crawdaunt, who is just a problem, especially if you let it get set up. But nothing that I didn't think that my team wouldn't be able to handle. So with that, we started the battle. So I led with my lead Uxie, and he led with Jolteon, and so I knew that Uxie could take any hit that the Jolteon wanted to throw at it, even like a Spec Shadow Ball, so I just went ahead for Stealth Rocks, but he moved before me and Volt switched into Fortress. So at this point, I was expecting him to just go for the easy Rapid Spin right off the bat, so I decided to take Uxie and U-turn out into Vivillon. However, he ended up setting up his own Stealth Rocks, which I entertained that possibility too. Part of why I U-turned directly into Vivillon was so that if he did set up rocks, I would be able to get a free switch in without having to worry about taking rocks damage on Vivillon, which obviously, since I had 2 quad rock weak things this week, I could have just gone into Excadrill first, but it would have been inconvenient. So right off the bat, I decided to go for a Sleep Powder with Vivillon to put the Fortress to sleep, and again, since we have Sleep Claws, putting Fortress to sleep wasn't ideal, but it allowed me to get up a free substitute that turn. So the following turn, turn 4, I throw up a substitute as he hard switches his Fortress out into Darmanitan. So this, I never got to find out if the Darmanitan was Choice Scarfed, but I knew that if it was, it would still outspeed a +1 Quiver Danced Vivillon, but I also knew that after it came in and took rocks damage, that Hurricane would just OHKO from that range, even without being boosted at +1 from Quiver Dance. So he went ahead and Flare Blitzed into my substitute and took a little bit of damage, and I was fortunate enough to land the Hurricane and take out the Darmanitan. So then he switched in Heracross. I ended up switching into Uxie because I figured if he was Choice Scarf, which I expected him to be, Matt had Heracross on his roster last year as well and pretty much always ran it Choice Scarfed. But if it was Choice Scarfed, then I knew that it would be able to outspeed Vivillon, who's naturally a little bit faster than it. So that's why I switched out to Excadrill, switched out to Uxie. But fortunately he missed, so the following turn I switched out to Excadrill, mostly just to spin away the rocks that he had set up so that I could get Vivillon or Charizard back in safely. But that same turn he decided to switch into Fortress though, so Fortress got a turn 2 wake up, and so our Fortress and Excadrill just traded Rapid Spins essentially, clearing the field of all hazards. So the following turn, Excadrill is Choice Scarf this week too, so I wasn't going to stay in and just continually Rapid Spin, so I decided to switch out to Charizard this turn to try and pressure the Fortress out and see if I could take it out. And on the switch he sets up Stealth Rock, so just like before, that's great for me because now I was able to get Charizard in and get it Mega Evolved before it had to deal with Stealth Rock damage essentially. So the following turn, I Mega Evolve and use Dragon Claw because this Fortress is at max HP after Leftovers recovery, and so I can't just go for the Flare Blitz right off the bat to take it out because Sturdy will allow it to take any one hit. So I use Dragon Claw just to avoid recoil for the turn and get damage off on it, and Fortress goes for a Layer of Spikes, so he's pretty hardcore going for hazard stacking. And so, needing him to stop doing that, I decided to just go for the Flare Blitz to go for the KO. Because the damage that Dragon Claw did made it clear that it wasn't going to be able to 2-hit KO the Fortress with that. And so, even though the Flare Blitz took me down into pretty low range for just my Charizard's HP in general, I felt like it was worth it because Charizard's main target on the opposing team was the Fortress, and it was able to take it out, so it did its job. After Fortress went down, Matt threw in Heracross, who was able to outspeed and KO me with Stone Edge, confirming that the Heracross was Choice Scarfed. So I sent in Excadrill because now I know for a fact that he's locked into Stone Edge, and Stone Edge won't do anything to Excadrill, so I'm able to just super easily Rapid Spin his rocks off my side of the field again, because even though Charizard's gone, I still want to be able to switch Vivillon again later. So I Rapid Spin as he switches into Nidoking, knowing that Stone Edge won't do anything to me. Nidokings I know like to run Flamethrower a lot, so this is why I took this turn to switch into Uxie. And also, again, I didn't want to just be locked into Rapid Spin, so switching into Uxie for defensive pivoting was just the play to make anyways. And sure enough, he used Flamethrower, so that didn't do too much to Uxie. Looking at the calcs later, it was pretty obvious that it was the Life Orb Sheer Force set, because even though it didn't take the recoil due to Sheer Force, it did enough. The amount of damage that it did insinuated that it was Life Orb, but I still wasn't completely positive, so I left Uxie in to set Stealth Rocks back up, as the Nidoking this time went for Sludge Wave, which this was huge, because this informed me that the Nidoking was not in fact Choice Scarfed, which I know what you're thinking. Alex, Nidokings always run Life Orb, why would they run a Choice Scarf? Well, you say that, but again, knowing my opponent and having used Choice Scarf Nidoking quite a few times myself before, I definitely was entertaining it as a possibility. But, so on the following turn, Nidoking just goes for another Sludge Wave to knock out Uxie, but this is great, because now that I know that the Nidoking isn't Choice Scarfed, now I know that Vivillon is faster than Nidoking. So I'm able to send Vivillon out. Now that I killed the Fortress that used to be asleep, I guess it woke up anyways, but I'm able to use Sleep Powder to put the Nidoking back, not back to sleep, but to sleep in the first place. And he gets one sleep turn. The following turn, I use Substitute to just get an extra layer between me and the Nidoking. Get lucky as it takes the second turn of sleep. And on the following turn, I go for the Quiver Dance and get super lucky. This is what I needed to happen last week, but the Nidoking ends up staying asleep for all 3 turns of maximum sleepness. So at this point, I'm sitting behind a Substitute, I have a Quiver Dance up, I know that the Nidoking's going to wake up on the next turn anyways, but I mean, +1 Hurricane is going to take the Nidoking straight out. Even if he switches into Jolteon, Jolteon will be able to Vivillon will be able to 2-hit KO the Jolteon, and I'm just in a really good position. Which is why it was really unfortunate when going into turn 20, I click Hurricane and we get disconnected. But anyways, so now we'll pick up the rest on Showdown. Okay, so now we've arrived at the Showdown recreation. So Matt and I discussed it, and the way that we decided to resolve the rest of our fight was to just build the teams that we had left from the disconnect on Showdown, replay the last few turns so that I could get my Stealth Rock set back up and get Vivillon set back up the same way that I had, and essentially just go from there. So right now, we're just blazing through the recreation of the last several turns of the actual fight. Here we have some jank as we try and break a sub so that Vivillon's at the same amount of HP as it was in the actual fight, but from here on out, these are the last several turns of the actual fight playing out. So from here on, I'm going to go to normal speed for the rest of the battle. So now that I'm at +1, I'm able to just easily go for a Hurricane to take the Nidoking out, so it's another kill for Vivillon. In comes the Jolteon, and so since we no longer have anything asleep on his team, I'm just going to go ahead and go for Sleep Powder here. However, interestingly enough, the Jolteon moves before Vivillon, even at +1 speed, confirming that the Jolteon was the Choice Scarf Jolteon. So I set a sub back up and take this opportunity to Quiver Dance one more time, so now I will be faster than the Jolteon. And here I just go for a Hurricane to get damage off on the Jolteon. He's going to go ahead and break my sub. And I go for another Hurricane here to take him out, but miss. But that's okay, because at this little HP, Breloom will easily be able to come in and threaten it out with Mach Punch here. So I just go for the Mach Punch, not wanting to play around, and he switches in Heracross because at the amount of HP that Jolteon was at, it can come back in on Stealth Rocks once. So Breloom's way too important to the rest of this matchup at this point, so I just switch Excadrill in to sack it off. Essentially, with Aerodactyl and Breloom, I have all the tools that I need to win this fight. So here I switch in Aerodactyl, who, since it's Scarfed, is fast enough to outspeed the Scarfed Heracross and take it out with Aerialist. Here's going to throw in Crawdaunt and try setting up with Dragon Dance, but I'm just going to hit him with another Aerialist because I can't have him setting up for free. And at this point, since he's only at +1 attack, he won't be able to kill Breloom with Aqua Jet, like, no days of the week. So here I'm able to throw Breloom in, he eats up an Aqua Jet, takes the Crawdaunt out with a Mach Punch, grabbing a kill. And then finally, the Scarf Jolteon is going to come back in, and I'm just going to clean up the match with a Mach Punch. So, all in all, we pick up a really close 1-0 victory over our division rivals Matt and the Everett Tropius. That was a really close game, and so I greatly look forward to our rematch later in the season. Looking forward to next week, we're playing against Josh, coach of the Galapagos Garchomps, another division rival for us. So, I hope you stay tuned and watch that match next week. Thanks for watching. Peace.